Góðan daginn, halló, heyrið ágætlega í mér. Þá skulum við fara að fá okkur sæti og skulum hefja þennan morgunverða fyrirlestur sem er að þessu sinni tileinkaður fyrirtæki sem heitir DATTO og þeir kynna sér betur hérna eftir augnablik. Sjálfur heiti ég Reyni Stefánsson og er forstöðumaður lausna og ráðgjafarhóps hjá opnum kerfum. Og ég lofa ykkur því að þessi tveir fyrirlestrar sem þið fáið í dag, þeir eru báðir mjög áhugaverðir. Og mér langar svona áður við byrjum að biðja ykkur að slökkva á GSM-símum eða allavega að setja það á silent, þannig að þið trufla okkur ekki. Svo vitið af því þá er fyrirlesturinn tekinn upp og hann er sendur út á YouTube-browserinn okkar og það er einnig hægt að horfa á fyrirlesturinn aftur. Hann verður settur aðgengilegur í OK-veituna hjá okkur. En við skulum ekki eyða tíma í mig og hleypa þeim á sviðið og fyrstur á svið er hann Alex Ford, hann er Channel Development Manager hjá DATTO. Emma, gjör svo vel. Alex.
Thank you, Rainer. Morning, everyone. So, what I wanted to talk to you about today, I was going to very quick bit of background on DATTO as a company. I'm sure many of you are thinking, who the hell are they? And then I mainly want to talk about business continuity before bringing on my colleague, James Mason. So, firstly, DATTO, who are we? We are a 100% channel-only vendor. We offer 24/7 support to our partners like Op and Carefree. And we focus on providing a total data protection platform to companies of all sizes, ranging from the SMB up to larger enterprise. We were founded in 2007 in a basement in Connecticut, in the house of our CEO's parents. So as all good tech companies, it starts in a basement or a garage somewhere in the States. That was at the age of 21 that Austin McCord founded DATTO. And the reason he did it was he truly believes that any business of any size, with any budget, should be able to protect themselves from downtime, and that having backup is not enough. They need extra levels of protection to ensure that they can keep going in the face of any disaster. So where we are today, we have about 700 full-time employees worldwide. Close to half of DATTO is focused on innovation, development, R&D, and support. We do not stand still as a company. We're trying to make things better, faster, stronger, quicker all the time. And in terms of where we are globally, we have offices in the US, Canada, UK, and Australia. And we're responsible for 1.2 million backups a day. To talk a little bit about how much data we're responsible for, so you have a view of our 9 data centers around the world, responsible for 250 petabytes of data. Probably a bit difficult to put that into context. What does 250 petabytes look like? Well, to put it into scale, we have businesses such as Netflix, responsible for about 40 petabytes a year. Facebook covers about half of what we do. So we have one of the biggest, if not the biggest, data protection platforms in the world, purpose-built for disaster recovery and business continuity. This is not hosting, this is not infrastructure as a service. This is purely designed to help businesses recover from any kind of disaster. And we have 70,000 devices around the world. As you see, there's not a lot of bright lights in Iceland at the moment, but hoping that as of today, we'll be able to get a few out there and help protect some of your businesses. And a little bit about DATTO in EMEA. So although we were founded in the US, we have a business set up in EMEA, based in Reading, just outside of London. And we operate as a separate entity. So in terms of data replication and where that's going, you guys have a massive advantage in the fact that we have a data center in Iceland, and data will not be replicated outside of Iceland. And in EMEA, we can support our partners such as Op and Carefree with every single job functionality. We have support, we have finance, we have marketing. So don't have to just deal with the US, they have support from us. Always good to be on the same time zone. So, enough of DATTO. What is business continuity? That's really what I'm here to talk to you about today. So let's go back to the beginning and look at the evolution of backup. And I always like to compare this to perhaps having a car. It's a good way to try and make it relative to you, perhaps. So we started with tape backup. So maybe you bought a car and you had a cassette player. Brilliant. A bit further ahead, you get disc backup. So that's when you get your CD player in your car. Fantastic. Then you get cloud backup. Pretty cool stuff, but maybe that's, Bluetooth connectivity for your mobile. So where are we at to now with hybrid backup? What kind of car are we looking at? I'd equate that to something like a Tesla. This is the future, and this is how you should be protecting your business. They don't make cars with cassette players anymore. So if you're using tape, you're in the dark ages, I'm afraid. So what's the difference? Backup protects you from data loss. Business continuity protects you from downtime. A few of you might think business continuity is expensive. I've got backup, that's going to be enough. Let's look at the cost of downtime. So these are a few stats that we've pulled from recent surveys. A few of the most alarming ones, I think, just the cost of downtime itself, but that 70% of businesses that experience a major data loss go out of business within a year. And that goes up to 90% after 5 years. Now, it might not be the money that's lost on that day. With a couple of days downtime, perhaps you can make that up with a few months of good sales, and you can recover lost revenue. But what about the impact it has on a business's image? It can take 10, 20 years for a CEO to build up a business, to have that great reputation and a solid customer base. But that can be lost instantly, drop of a hat, if you can't deliver on orders, if you can't take sales, if you can't serve your customer base. Great example, actually related to DATTO, years ago, probably about 5 years ago, when DATTO was still in its infancy and up and coming, we needed a new coffee supplier. So went on Google, looked for local ones in the area, called the first results. And what did they say? Sorry, we can't take any new orders or contracts at the moment because our system's down. So did we say, no worries, we'll call back tomorrow? No, of course not. We went down to the next result on Google. And that company now has won that contract, they still have it, and as our company's grown, so has theirs. So you need to look at the long-lasting impact of not being able to serve your customers. How easy is it for one of your customers to switch to the rival, the business down the street, or your closest competitor? As loyal as they are, if they're not getting the service they want, they're not going to come back to you. And that is true of anything you can think of. So, I already have backup. Isn't that enough? No, it's not. So, the importance of IT to today's businesses. If you think about everything that your business runs on, it all comes back to IT. We're creating more and more data. Everything goes through a digital channel. Every transaction that is made, every order, that is all logged. I'd be very, very surprised if I asked you to be honest and you said, yeah, we still do everything on paper. We document all of that and we put it away in drawers and stuff. No, everything today is digital. So that is the lifeline of a business. So, still believe backup is enough? Let's look at a case study. So this is a business called Mandarin Stone, based in the UK. They're one of the UK's largest importers and stockists of natural stone, porcelain, ceramics, etc. So they have one core head office and multiple branches around the UK, all relying on core systems based at the head office. Over 130 staff, 20 million annual turnover, 3 terabytes of business critical data. So we're not talking about 10, 20, 30, petabytes. We're not talking about a lot of data. But what they have is absolutely vital to that business, and those core applications mean that everything keeps running. So what happened? 2004, due to a hardware failure, they experienced 2 days of downtime because they were protecting themselves with tape. So they had their data stored elsewhere, that's great, but when you need to use it, how quickly does it take to get that back into a usable state where your business can carry on functioning? What did that mean? It meant £200,000 in lost revenue over those 2 days. So between 2004 and 2015, they obviously decided that due to that pain they experienced and that lost revenue, that it was time to get serious about protecting their business from downtime. So they invested in a DATTO appliance through one of our partners, fully managed by that partner. They offer support, they do the installation, they monitor it for them. It's purely as a service. So they can sleep easy at night knowing that that partner is taking care of that side of their disaster recovery. So what happened again? We had an air conditioning fault, which basically melted the server, but they were back up and running within a couple of hours. That's the entire business. So orders still being taken and processed, revenue still being generated, happy employees not having to be sent home and not able to hit their targets, for example. So £200,000 saved. Excellent. So understanding the risk, let's look at where these risks for downtime actually originate from. So what we've seen recently in a study carried out last year is that there is a 38% increase in the risk of downtime. But where that comes from, it's not necessarily outside disruptions. That remained flat. So when I'm talking about outside disruptions, I'm talking about hurricanes, tornadoes, extreme weather. Obviously, I know you guys have quite a lot of volcanoes here, but where I'm from in the UK, it's not something we have to worry about too much, maybe a bit of flooding. But that kind of message, maybe it works in the US for DATTO, talking about the threat of the latest hurricane, but it's not necessarily the biggest cause of downtime. What we're looking at is things like failure in hardware, communications, and power. So, how many people have experienced these disasters? Luckily, none of you, I'm assuming, which is good. As I said, they're few and far between. You live in a relatively safe country with no extreme climate. But what about these kinds of disasters? This is what we're seeing today. This is the biggest threat to business at the moment. It doesn't come from a hurricane rolling through a city, and it's not even necessarily just hardware failure. We're talking about ransomware, talking about viruses. So you'll see this on the news at the moment, I'm sure. It's kind of everywhere. There's buzzwords, crypto locker, ransomware, so many iterations available. And at least one employer will click on anything. You can have the best antivirus out there, and there are some great vendors available. But no matter how good your antivirus is, it can't make humans idiot-proof. There is always someone who will click on a link, and it can often be, very non-threatening. It can look absolutely fine to click, but it can destroy your business in seconds. So here we go. Here's an example. Looks fine. A friend shared a file on Dropbox. Maybe you don't look at the email address quite right. All it takes is one tweak of a letter or a little dot in there. You're not going to notice the difference. Boom. You're now encrypted with ransomware. If you're on a network for your business, so are all your colleagues, so are those core systems. And very quickly, one employee can compromise that entire business operation. So let's look at another case study, more related to what I'm talking about at the moment. So, 4 Children, a non-profit organization based in the UK. So we're not necessarily talking about lost revenue, but what they do is vital for children and families who need their support and need that funding. So if they're down, we're actually talking about humans that are suffering. It's not necessarily loss of revenue. Again, it's equally important. And again, they have an image to uphold, a brand to maintain. And this is the kind of stuff that hits the news if something goes wrong. So, 1,200 staff, 4 terabytes of data. In 2015, they had a CryptoLocker infection, but almost immediately, they're able to recover thanks to DATTO Cirrus. And that was £14,000 an hour in precious funding saved, and a lot of families that depended on it were not left kind of worrying about what to do next. So, on the subject of ransomware, this does have a point. I'm not just showing you, where you can go and buy some drugs. Does anyone know what the Silk Road is, or Silk Road 2? Has anyone heard of it? A few nods. I won't ask you to put your hands up and incriminate yourself, don't worry. So the Silk Road is based on the dark net, the dark web, which is accessed via the Tor browser. If you're not familiar with that, it was created by the US Navy many years ago as a means of sending encrypted data. However, they realized that as they were the only ones who had this technology, everyone would know that it was them sending the data. So what did they do? They released the Tor browser into the public domain so anyone can access it. And there are some pretty nefarious sites on there that you can access, some pretty dark stuff. One of which is the ability to go and buy drugs as if you were going on eBay, just buying it online. It's absolutely crazy the way it looks. You get reviews and everything. If you dare go on, it is quite interesting, I must admit. But back to my main point, one thing you can go on and buy on there is ransomware kits. So we're not talking about secret military operations to create this crazy, incredible, rather intelligent form of encrypting and destroying businesses' data. You can go on and you can buy this with a credit card. Well, I say credit card, Bitcoins is the currency used. If we look at this one, this was a snapshot taken just the other day. And I don't know if you can see at the top, but 39 of these kits sold since March 4th, 2016. So that's 39 people who've gone on there and said, I want a piece of that, I want to make some Bitcoin. So they've gone on, they've created some ransomware, and they've started infecting businesses. So this could be absolutely anyone. This is, I know, kids, teenagers who don't want to do a paper round. They don't want to get up early, so I'll create ransomware. It's a lot easier. But that is just how easy it is to build yourself an actual business, targeting other businesses, holding their data to ransom, holding their business to ransom, and demanding Bitcoins. The problem being, a lot of the time, you can pay that ransom. There's no guarantee you're actually going to get your data back because they've been paid, right? So move on to the next one. Anyway, let's look at the numbers around ransomware. So this was a survey that DATTO carried out recently across just over 1,000 of our partners globally. So this takes in US, rest of EMEA, Australia, the APAC region. So this is a true global glimpse of what's going on with ransomware at the moment. A few of them pretty alarming. So 40% report 6+ attacks in early 2016. This is very much an epidemic. I don't think that word is too strong. This is absolutely what we're seeing today. A few more statistics for you. So 95% have actually seen CryptoLocker attacks. 93% report ransomware infiltrating antivirus, anti-malware software. Interestingly enough, I'm kind of wondering exactly what customers you have here today. I understand there's a few from the banking, etc. I guess a few from healthcare. These are the industries that are most profitable for ransomware. These are the targets. We're looking at professional services, healthcare, construction, manufacturing. The thing, however, that we see is really it's indiscriminate. Ransomware can attack any business of any size, whether you're the biggest enterprise customer with loads of a whole security team, that's still a worthy target for them, and whether you're towards that SMB sector and you don't have the means to invest in a huge security team, data is equally important from the smallest to the largest business, so people will pay. And finally, with the backup and disaster recovery solutions such as Cirrus, 97% of small businesses could recover from ransomware. Without it, that drops to 68%. So which percentage would you rather be in? So what we feel is that data protection is a legal responsibility. So you're looking at securing your data. I imagine a lot of you need to retain it as well for a set time frame. And even if you don't by any compliance standards, I imagine you want to have that data for a while. You want to be able to go back 5, 10 years, whether it's to find an email that in lawsuit you're being sued by a competitor. You want to know that you can go back and pull any information that you need. So what we offer with our data center, obviously hosted in Iceland, we offer a fixed monthly cost for unlimited cloud storage forever. So the price will never go up. Forget this per gigabyte way of buying data. That's old hat. What we do is we give you a fixed monthly cost. You have as much space as you want, send as many backups as you want to the cloud, and we will store that data forever for you. So if you're looking at this from a compliance perspective, you can tick, countless boxes there. But as I said, data security, it's a legal responsibility. And authorities, governments are getting more and more stringent around these areas. So, we're seeing the perfect storm. Every employee creates data. Data is the most critical thing your business will ever create. Aside from your customers, this is the main thing that keeps you going. And business data is traveling everywhere. Think of the amount of SaaS applications your employees are probably using, multiple devices that they're using. You need to be able to secure all of that data. And with DATTO, we have a total data protection platform, whether you're looking to cover data that's being synced and shared across multiple devices, or whether it's those core servers that you need to protect, or whether it's third-party SaaS applications like Salesforce, Office 365, Google Apps. We have a solution designed to protect, backup, and restore that for you. So, the problem with data security, as I said, it is solvable, and I'll tell you how. You need local backup and restores on an appliance like this. But having it locally is not enough, because what happens if your office does burn down? What happens if somebody steals this box? I know it's not that big, quite easy to put under your coat perhaps. But you also need cloud backup and restores. We believe in a hybrid model. Local's great, cloud's great. Put them together, you have a very, very strong, powerful solution to protect your business. But you also need to be able to quickly virtualize your IT infrastructure. Just storing your data on this is not good enough. What you need to have is the ability to turn this into a server. Server dies, this carries a hypervisor, no worries. This becomes your server for as long as you need. And we're talking minutes, we're not talking hours to get back up and running. Okay, let's imagine that this dies. You have a more catastrophic incident at your site, and you no longer have access to your building. The Cirrus has gone with it. Don't worry, it comes with a 5-year warranty. We'll send you a new one. But in the meantime, you can spin everything up in the cloud with our support team, and the help of Up and Carefree will connect all of those employees back in, and your business keeps running. And you save that image, you save your revenue. And you need to ensure that you have proper disaster recovery, and it needs to be through a trusted service provider. You need to go to the experts. This is not an area that you necessarily want your IT team trying to manage. You want guys that live and breathe this stuff, like Up and Carefree. So, quick summary. What is backup? What is business continuity? So the things that you need, as I said, local protection, cloud protection, ability to prevent downtime, and your RTO, your recovery time objective. We need to talk about seconds or minutes. You cannot be talking about hours or days. That is time that your business cannot afford. So the rule of thumb that I want to leave you with is, if you can't test it, it's not continuity. So this device will run tests on whatever schedule you want to check that you can virtualize instantly. You can run full offsite DR tests with DATTO and Up and Carefree to bring that infrastructure up in the cloud. Identify any networking requirements. It's a basic dress rehearsal. You can go through that multiple times throughout the year. That is going to be great for you from a compliance perspective. Any auditors that come in, you're going to tick a hell of a lot of boxes there. But if you can't test it, if you can't test your backups, the quality of them, then it's not continuity. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Halló, þetta er flott. Við höfum smá tíma fyrir spurningar ef að einhverjar eru áður við förum í næsta fyrirlestur. Engar spurningar. Heyrðu þá, megið þið bjarga ykkur kaffi. Ég ætla að svissa mæk á næsta aðila.
All good? No worries.
Sales engineer hjá DATTO í Evrópu og við skulum bara gefa honum orðið. Go ahead, James.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So obviously, the first session with Alex was talking about the kind of commercial side of what we do at DATTO. Now, what I want to do is take you through some of the technical landscape. I'm not going to go into absolute deep dive mode, which I have been known to do. What I want to do today is give you a kind of a quick overview as to what we're looking at. So we're going to be running through the solution set, what DATTO has to offer. We're going to be looking at the features of the Cirrus 3, which is what I've got here today. We'll have a look at some of the architecture behind DATTO, and then we'll run through a good old-fashioned demonstration of what we can do. And at that point, I do invite people to take pictures, point, laugh, run for the hills, anything like that. We've also had to inform the networking team here that we're about to do something very terrible, and I'm sure they're all terrified, which should be fun. So when we look at DATTO, obviously we've been talking today about the Cirrus solution. We also have a few other solutions around there. Now, Cirrus is our flagship. Cirrus is the one that basically offers all the features and functionality that we're going to go through today. So that's the one we can use when we're looking at entire and absolute critical system failure. And predominantly when we're looking at the Cirrus system, that's the one we're going to be looking at to cover us from ransomware. Now, as Alex was talking about ransomware, and he kind of said, you know, has anyone felt the pain? I saw a few people nodding around the room, and I feel for you. Just out of curiosity, just a quick show of hands, how many of you have actually experienced a ransomware attack on your networks? My word, okay. And when you had that attack, did you get your data back? Did you manage to get decrypted? Yeah, okay, that's good. You got the recovery from backups, fantastic. How long did it take, out of curiosity? 3 attacks and then 1 hour to 6 hours to recover from each. Very interesting. Okay, so obviously at that point you felt that pain of having, you know, admittedly not a massive amount of downtime, but still there was downtime there that you still felt that pinch. Okay, so obviously there, you know, we can see that this isn't just something that, you know, DATTO like to come and scare people about and say, hey, ransomware, be afraid, be very afraid. It is a real and absolute issue out there. And obviously later on today, once we've finished, you know, we'd love to have some conversations with you guys around, you know, what you've seen, what you've felt, different types of attack you've seen, different types of human error you may have seen in the company. As Alex said, there is one person that clicks on everything. What Alex failed to mention is he is the guy that clicks on everything in our company. He sees free holidays, straight in there. But yeah, so obviously the DATTO Cirrus solution, that is the quintessential business continuity system. And I'll run through some of the features and functionalities of that as we go through. Next up, the DATTO NAS does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a NAS solution. So it can basically give you some good protection for your files and folders, and has the ability to do some versioning control, some off-siting of that, and the ability to actually do rollbacks as well. So it means that you don't have to worry about having that file server that's getting a little bit old now and doesn't really do any backup there. We have that secondary ability there. Works really well in tandem with the DATTO Cirrus 3 solution. We've got DATTO Drive, which is a great file sync and share utility. So anyone here that may be using Dropbox or anything like that, we can look at then potentially moving away from that and having a more centrally managed solution, which obviously then brings you under one vendor's roof. We've also got Backupify. Now I understand that Office 365 is quite a used system out here. Obviously this would then give you the ability to actually get some backup of that Office 365 environment. There seems to be a lot of, I would say, misunderstanding around the fact that Microsoft's got you, which is a great feeling to have, you know, the ability to say, oh, I'm with Microsoft. But what happens when you delete that email, delete it from your deleted items, and then 6 months later, remember you actually need said email because you had some sales opportunity linked to it, you had some numbers tied into it, or there's some financial documentation behind it. That's the point where you feel the pain. You know, with Backupify, we can restore back to an indefinite time frame. We take 3 backups a day, things like this. And again, obviously, do come and talk to us about these solutions. Do stop Alex, myself. We've got Patrick here as well from upstream, who knows the products through and through. We also obviously have the guys from Up and Curfew as well. They all know these solutions. So as I said, when we're looking at the solution today, we're going to be looking at Cirrus 3, and I understand that that is an absolute ton of things to read. I promise you, I'll go through these a little bit better when I give you a demonstration. But some of the key bits of technology behind what we do and some of the key features, we can range in size of solution from 500 gigabytes up to 120 terabytes. We have the ability, though, if you've got larger environments, to have a few devices and start looking at some load balancing across those. We have that inverse chain technology built into it. Now, inverse chain is something that we came out with to alleviate the pressures of the traditional chain methodology. So originally you have, with backup chains for tape systems and things like that, you get a base image at the bottom and then a load of backups stacked on top of that. Now that's great until you have a backup corruption. If you have a backup corruption at that point, we have to then start a brand new chain. All the data beforehand becomes null and void and unusable. And then all of a sudden you don't have the retention, you don't have the years and years worth of data storage you need to cover you from potential litigation, potential failure to meet compliancy, things like that. So we actually, as it says, do it in an inverse way. So we've got the base image at the top, all the backup points underneath, the incremental backup points, and we have the ability to roll to any point in time to be able to then restore that point, as Alex said, within seconds. On-site and hybrid virtualization from the DATTO cloud. We have an advanced screenshot verification system, so we can snapshot system backups, prove bootability, but also go through and do some testing, some scripts to make sure that the SQL server will come back up, the Exchange database will come back online, these type of things. And ransomware detection as well, obviously, is a big one that we've been talking about. The ability to actually test the backups for ransomware. Make sure that, if a backup point's infected, bang, we know about it. Predominantly, you'll see that Up and Curfew will actually know about the ransomware attack before you guys do. So they'll be able to see from the backups, something's gone wrong. They'll be the ones ringing you and saying, hey, did you know you've got ransomware? At which point you predominantly say no, cry, hide, run out of the building, things like that. I go one step further with what I do to my ransomware infection. You'll see that in a little while. And obviously when we start looking at all of these great features here, we see that we've got one of the lowest RTOs in the industry. So when we look at this, and when we look at what RTO and RPO mean, RTO, recovery time objective, and RPO is a recovery point objective. So what we're looking at there, recovery point objective is basically how much data you're going to lose when you invoke DR. How much data do we have to go back because of the frequency of backups? RTO is how quickly can we spin up a server in the case of failure. So when we look at DATTO, obviously we need to measure ourselves against these. These are industry standard things. It's not just things we made up to make ourselves sound good. These are industry standard acronyms. DATTO's got a 5-minute RPO. We can take backups down to as little as every 5 minutes. So it's a great protection against the potential for data loss. And we've got a 6-second RTO, apologies. So within that, there's 6 seconds of downtime because we can actually spin up a server on this box within 6 seconds. Alex, remind me to fire my secretary, which is me. So when we look at Cirrus 3, and when we look at that and see, I've been saying Cirrus 3, Cirrus 3, Cirrus 3, what's so different between that and Cirrus 2, which was the predecessor to this guy? So obviously Cirrus 2, that's some of the technology we had within it. I said this would be a bit of a technical landscape, so here's finally some technology stuff. SpeedSync is our way of getting data to the cloud. It's our system that we created to basically compile data into one send file and push to the cloud, utilizing the bandwidth in the best possible way. So that didn't change because that was pretty good. And we've also used the DATTO ZFS, DATTO's own version of ZFS as a file system. ZFS is one of the best file systems out there. It can handle mass amounts of data. It's got a self-healing property, things like that. So it's really good. Now, some of the things we did change. So we updated to Ubuntu 16.04. And the reasoning behind that is so that we can actually have that longer term support. So we've now got 5 years worth of support from the guys who make Ubuntu. And it means we've got a fair amount of new patches, new fixes. It's a lot faster. We've gone from PHP CGI as the base model that we build most of the solution on to PHP 7 with FPM. So this basically means we can build more for the system quicker, and it means that the open source community can also add to the system a lot easier. We've moved from the Cherokee web server, which was good, to the Apache web server. It's a lot quicker, it fails a lot less, things like that. So these are all good things in our... We moved from VirtualBox to KVM. Now KVM, for those that don't know, is an enterprise standard, universally renowned hypervisor which basically offers everything and anything you could ever want. This is the hypervisor that some of the biggest companies in the world use. So we're giving that enterprise level hypervisor to the SME market inside these boxes. And then finally, we actually rebuilt our bare metal restore process. The original one was great, it worked. The one we've got now, it's a lot better. We've got a higher rate of success with it. We actually increased the rate of success tenfold. We're injecting drivers into this, so it means that we can move from one hardware to another. You've got the older server that's maybe 4 or 5 years old that's just failed. We've got a brand spanking new Blade server that we've just replaced it with, and we can now restore that entire server image to that new system, injecting all the drivers, doing the resizing of the partitions, and all of that comes with great success now. So when we look at the solution architecture, it's just a really quick one. We can see on the left-hand side of the screen, we've got the basic layout of an environment, one of your environments. Maybe some virtual on there, there may be some physical on there. So we've got kind of the best of both worlds here. And what we're doing with those, with the virtualized environment, we have the ability to go in and do agentless backups of the VMware environments. Predominantly, that's what we're seeing. If we've got Hyper-V, we can inject our agent into each and every VM, so we can still back those up. If we've got any other hypervisors out there, we can do exactly the same. So we've got that same great backup, whether it's agent or agentless. And with the physical servers and laptops, we can also go in and take backups of those. And they all go on to an on-site, on-premise box, one of these guys. Obviously, I'm not just suggesting that you get a box that looks a bit like a weird NAS system. They range in size. We've got rack-mountable units in the top-end systems, that 120 terabyte system. Well, it weighs a lot. That's about as much as I can tell you. It broke my back the first time I tried to pick one up. And obviously, from there, we can then replicate that data out to the DATTO cloud. Now, for you guys, we have our hardware in a data center within Iceland. We're working out of Verne Global. So that means we don't have to transfer that data outside of the country. We're not saying to you, yeah, that's fine. We'll back up that data locally and then we'll send it off to Ireland, or we'll send it off to the US, or we'll send it off to somewhere else in the world. It stays within Iceland. It's a great thing. It's a great part of becoming a DATTO customer. Now, like I said, I will show you what the system can do, because the proof's in the pudding, as they say. So, with that in mind, let's see what I can do here. Let's come out of the presentation. And that's a great picture of the DATTO team there at our conference. Alex is in there somewhere. So what I've got here is the server. Now, just to introduce you to this little setup down here, and apologies for those sitting at either end of the room, you may want to stand up and have a look or move in. Obviously, we've got the backbone switch of your network. I need you to work with your imaginations here and imagine this is huge, but bear with me. So we've got the backbone switch here. We have the business critical server, again, think big. And here we have the DATTO Cirrus appliance that's backing up that network. So what I've just opened up here is the server. That's that guy over there. And to also open up the other side of things, we can see that we've got the Cirrus UI. So this is actually the web UI of this Cirrus box. So we can see from here that the device itself is easily manageable via web UI. And when we jump through the different tabs within here, we can pull information from it. We can pull understanding of how frequently we're backing up the system, how frequently we're replicating that data off to the cloud, what that system is, you know, what operating system it is, things like that. And we can go in and configure absolutely everything underneath there. So it means that we don't have to worry about getting onto the server and playing with the software there to then go back to the box, then go to the cloud. Everything's manageable from this one central location. Now, as you can see, it's running through a backup now, which is good, because with what I'm about to do to it, it'll probably need that. So, if we open up the remote desktop, and we can see from within here that we've got some great pictures. There you go, there's the outline of the different solutions. We've got some great documentation, some great pictures from our event the last week that I like keeping. And we have with us today, and this is why the network team up in Curfew were terrified, because I'm probably one of the only idiots in the world that will actually carry around CryptoLocker with them. In this case, we've actually got a copy of the Jigsaw version of ransomware. So for those of you, obviously Alex went through it, for those of you that don't understand what CryptoLocker and Jigsaw and Locky and all those different types of ransomware do, they basically install themselves onto your servers, onto your workstations. They then encrypt all the business critical data on there and tell you that if you don't give them an amount of Bitcoin, or if we work in real money, I think it's about anywhere between 150 and 300 euros, then they're going to delete the encryption key and your data is null and void. You can't get it back. Not a very nice thing to do. However, like I said, I am a registered and certified idiot, so I can go ahead and just plug this USB stick into my business critical server, because obviously that's what everyone does these days. And then from there we can just open up the browser. Right, so we've got this lovely USB here. Now, interestingly enough, this obviously is a nice, easy to understand encryption that we're going to run through today. So it says jigsaw.exe, which is great. And the only reason it says .exe at the end of it is because I've shown the file types. Now, a lot of the times when you guys get these files, they'll actually spoof a file type. So it'll come up saying jigsaw.mp4, or double-click me for a holiday.mp4, or .html, or some other type of file system. So you're double-clicking it, thinking, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. And we'll go ahead and double-click that today. So this is the first thing that comes up when we see Jigsaw or an other ransomware infection. It says, well done, congratulations, you have registered your software. Go you. That's the first point we start thinking, oh no, what have I done? So we'll click OK. Predominantly, we don't even read these things nowadays, right? We had the great one going back a little while ago from one of the big vendors in the world who actually put in part and parcel of their terms and conditions that your firstborn child was now theirs. And everyone just, no one reads these days. They just say, yep, whatever. So we can see now that something's gone wrong here. We can see that these file types are being hidden. What's going on? .fun. I have no idea what that is. All right, well, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. We'll go off. We'll go out for lunch. We'll go and grab some tea, whatever. We'll come back and we'll see that these file types are still, yeah, okay. What's going on here? Okay, well, these images are still okay, but I tell you what, these files, they're a bit worrying for me. And as we're seeing within a ransomware attack, basically what's happening is the Jigsaw virus is currently going through the system and encrypting the key files for us. And after a while, we'll see a lovely little pop-up come up on this screen. For any of those that have seen the Saw films, it's the guy, the little doll thing that's creepy as hell. He comes up on your screen, and there's a load of text that comes up and says, haha, you've all got CryptoLocker. I don't know if the network team currently upstairs just frantically typing away and hoping for the best. Hope not. So obviously that system is now going through that encryption process. And we'll leave that running through the encryption. There we go. As if by magic. So there is that creepy little so-and-so up on my screen. Now, funnily enough, when one of our software engineers in the US went through this and did this process, For some reason, she did this at home. She encrypted the system at home late at night with all the lights off in her house. When this popped up, she screamed and launched her laptop across the room, which was hilarious and terrible all at once. So anyway, so this guy's coming up and saying, your computer files have been encrypted, blah, 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 photos, yada, yada, yada. Pay me or lose it. And it takes a little while for all this text to come down. But eventually, it basically gives you an option to see the files that are encrypted, hit a box to go on and start getting your decryption key. Now, like I said, I am a certified idiot. So we'll close that and we'll leave this back up running in the background. We'll go to restore and we'll leave that opening. However, I have just terrified myself with the fact that I've put CryptoLocker on this system. I don't want to be the one ringing up and Curfew saying, guys, I've done something wrong, I'm really sorry. So with that in mind, Alex, if you could join me on stage, please. I'm going to, well, in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and, yeah, go for it. We're going to set fire to that server because I don't want to know anymore. And you know what? I'm really, really worried, and everyone wondered what this was, right? I don't want that anymore. That's scary. It'll still work, right? Sure. Alex, I think you singed your arm there. It's a horrible smell up here now. Okay, so now that server is pretty dead, right? So now at this point, obviously, this is where DATTO comes in to save the day. This is where we can come in and say, you know what? Don't worry about it. We've got you. We've got my server here. We've got local virtualization, and we've got the backup points that we've been using here. So I can go in, select the latest point, or maybe select a previous point today because we don't want the latest and greatest because that's the one with ransomware on, as we've just seen. Yep. So I'm going to go ahead, start this virtualization up. It's going to load into the virtual environment. It's going to load KVM up, and it's going to give me the ability to go ahead and start assigning some options to this virtualization. So I want to make sure this VM comes online in the best possible way. I want to give it the right amount of resource. I want to give it the best possible storage controller. I want to go in and make sure basically that this system comes back online as it was originally. Network back, absolutely everything. So you can see all of the options here that I can go in and do. I'm going to leave them as is. Apply the options. What it does now is it goes back, talks to KVM internally on the box again and says, I need these options. Can you do this for me? It says, yeah, I can do that for you. Give me a couple of seconds. So it then assigns everything up, and we can go ahead and start this VM. Now, as Alex mentioned earlier, this is where that 6-second time frame comes in. What we're doing at this point is we're taking the backup file that's stored on this box, which is stored as a .vmdk file, so that's VMware's virtual disk image. We're applying that onto the virtual machine that we've got already loaded into KVM. We're going ahead and starting that up, and there we go. So now that server that is currently taking a lovely bath, that was on fire and also has a CryptoLocker infection on it, is now coming back online on my network. So if I click in, you'll be able to see that that loads up, in this case, a VNC, but obviously for you guys, you don't want to have to do any VNC or anything like that. You just want to have access to it, right? So that's where, obviously, we would basically give it the same networking capabilities it had originally. All you'd need to do on your server would be click send and receive, or for the email, or connect back to the service that you were currently accessing, or whatever you needed to do to get access back into that system. And we can see from that little screenshot there that that server is now up and running. We're back online. No CryptoLocker infection. No need to worry. No need to panic again or anything like that. We've got you. And that's the true power of DATTO. That's what we can do in a nutshell. It's taking your pretty unlikely disaster, admittedly. I'm sure that all of you don't have an idiot like me working for you. If you do, you may want to speak to HR about getting that person put in their own little room for a very long time. But this server that we've now totally screwed up, we've got it back up and running. No payment of the CryptoLocker money or Bitcoin or whatever it is to that nasty little so-and-so sat in his bedroom, because that's who it is these days. Like Alex said, it's not a big corporation. It's not a multinational or anything like that. It's some kid sat in his bedroom that bought a pack off of the dark net and thought, hey, I can make a few extra quid and buy some more PlayStation games. That's what we've got to work with these days. So obviously we'll leave that running in the background. We go back to this. So thank you very much.
Jæja, hvað finnst ykkur þetta? Ekki einhverja spurningar, einhverja pælingar? Þeir verða hérna áfram líka eitthvað aðeins hjá okkur fram að hátti ef það einhverjir sem vilja hitta þá. Og ég veit líka að þeir eru í samningastöðu ef einhverju vill hérna fá að sjá eitthvað meira en PowerPoint-kynningu og fá að sjá verð. En ekki einhver sem vill spyrja einhverju? Spurning, þá ætla ég að labba hérna með mækinn að því að við erum með.
Sure.
The first one is you're actually running KVM on it. I'm a VMware company and I fire up. How do you actually restore my VMware servers on the KVM server?
So when we actually take the backups themselves, every single backup that we take is basically we do what we call a hardware independent restore. So it doesn't matter whether it comes from VMware, Hyper-V, KVM, physical, etc., so on and so forth. Each and every backup is created into this backup point that we can use, which happens to be VMDK. So obviously in the case of VMware, it's already in that pre-existing state that we can use within KVM, but we just go ahead and remove all the bespoke drivers. Predominantly it works very well for physical because there's going to be a load of drivers, a load of network cards, drivers, things like that we can't use within KVM. So we just rip all those out and make it as vanilla as possible so it can boot within KVM.
And the second question is, does it come up with all the same network capabilities as it was on the previous one, or kind of redirect all activity to that server?
Absolutely.
With the same network IP addresses and stuff?
Absolutely. So there's kind of a two-phase answer to that. One part of it will be that it's something that OpenCurfew will do as part and parcel of the managed service around it. It's just go ahead and apply the same IP settings back to the system. The other part of that is unless we've got a reverse DNS setting on the DNS server. If there's reverse DNS, it will look at that server's host name and say, ah, you had this IP address. Assign it back down and then you're good to go. The reason it doesn't come back up with the same IP settings as standard is because we've gone from using the VMware, physical NIC, whatever it is, to the KVM NIC, and the systems aren't there. Unless we're going from KVM, and obviously the network card will just come back up again and there'll be no issue.
And one final one for me. If you go back to the demo screen.
Sure.
I saw there was a network disconnect on there.
Yeah.
I wanted to understand why.
So within the networking options within the DATTO solution, we have the ability to spin up in different network states. So in this case, because it's a great little demonstration, I don't need to network it. It doesn't matter for me. I'm just going to connect in via via VNC or something like that. We do have the ability, though, as you can see there, to bridge it back to the primary NIC. So it comes out of this network cable here and goes into the switch and then back to my Mac. Alternatively, you can see there we can firewall on a private subnet to be able to bring this back online in a separate network state. It's basically a great little sandbox for us to do some testing on, and we'll be able to go in there and basically, test the latest and greatest patches, test the little bit of software that some guy down the pub told us about last night, things like that without affecting our production network. Brilliant.
Glæsilegt. Fleiri spurningar? Engar spurningar. Þá það bara búið hjá okkur, sem segir þeir verða hérna áfram hjá okkur, þannig að ef það eitthvað sem þið viljið fræðast meira eða ræða one-on-one, þá bara gjöru þessu vel, annars segi ég bara takk fyrir í dag.